When I was young, I thought money was mostly about math. Math matters, arithmetic matters, interest rates matter, taxes matter, prices matter. But after all these years, after watching businesses, markets, families, heirs, managers, partners, and ordinary workers either build freedom or slowly sell it away, I can tell you something with great confidence. Most money problems are not caused by a lack of intelligence. They are caused by a lack of control. They are caused by impatience. They are caused by envy. They are caused by rising expectations. They are caused by people asking money to do jobs it was never designed to do. Money can buy many things. It can buy shelter, food, time, comfort, care, mobility, safety, and room to think. But too many people ask it to buy status, identity, self-worth, admiration, and emotional peace. That is where the confusion begins. Money is not very good at making you feel important for long. Money is not very good at curing insecurity. Money is not very good at healing envy. Money is not very good at keeping a moving target still. But money is very good at one thing. It buys control over your time. It buys margin. It buys the right to say no. It buys the ability to survive mistakes. It buys the ability to walk away from foolishness. It buys independence. If you understand that early, you can build a powerful life. If you misunderstand it, you can earn more and more while becoming less and less free. I have seen people with huge incomes who were trapped. I have seen people with modest savings who were calm. I have seen beautiful homes filled with financial pressure. I have seen ordinary homes filled with peace. I have seen people who were rich in the visible sense and poor in the only sense that finally mattered. They owned expensive things, but they did not own themselves. That is a hard way to live. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that becoming good with money requires some secret formula. They imagine a private room where the rich pass around codes. They imagine hidden strategies, elite connections, mysterious tax tricks, insider language, and advanced intelligence. They imagine that financial security belongs to a private club, the right family, the right school, the right network, the right city, the right career. Some advantages are real. I would be a fool to deny that. Some people start farther ahead. Some people are born onto smoother roads. Some get hit by life before they ever have a chance to stand up straight. But a great many people use that truth as an excuse to ignore behavior. That is a serious mistake. Money is one of the few areas of life where average intelligence paired with excellent behavior can outperform high intelligence paired with poor behavior for decades. If you were choosing a surgeon, you would want the best surgeon. If you were choosing an engineer, you would want the best engineer. If you were choosing the person most likely to be financially secure over 30 years, I would not begin by asking how clever they are. I would begin by asking a different set of questions. Can they live below their means? Can they keep their expectations in check? Can they avoid needless comparison? Can they save consistently when nobody is watching? Can they endure boredom? Can they stop trying to look rich long enough to become wealthy? Can they avoid turning every raise into a new set of obligations? Can they leave compounding alone? Those questions are not glamorous, but they are profitable. The first real trap in money is not low income. It is a moving definition of enough. That trap is everywhere. When people are broke, they imagine a little bit more money will solve everything. Then they get a little bit more. And very often nothing changes except the size of the target. 10,000 becomes 50, 50 becomes 101, 100 becomes 250. Then the target becomes a nicer apartment, then a nicer neighborhood, then a new car, then private school, then a kitchen renovation, then better vacations. Then the social circle changes, and suddenly what once felt extravagant now feels ordinary. That is one of the cruelest forces in finance. Expectations rise faster than satisfaction, and when that happens, people do foolish things to close the gap. They borrow, they overspend, they over-upgrade, they buy things to announce progress, they stretch for appearances, they use long-term obligations to fund short-term feelings. Then, because the pressure increases, they tell themselves they need still more money. That loop can last half a lifetime. The hardest financial skill is not earning more. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. If you do not master that, success will feel like failure in slow motion. The reason is simple. Wealth is not only about what you have, it is about the gap between what you have and what you demand from life. If your demands rise every time your resources rise, you can stay restless forever. That is why some people with very little can feel stable while some people with an abundance feel poor. The second trap is comparison. Comparison makes people spend money to solve emotional problems. They see what someone else has, but they do not see what it cost. They see the car, not the stress. They see the house, not the leverage. They see the vacation, not the arguments. They see the title, not the hours. They see the jewelry, not the debt. They see the payoff, not the sacrifice. Everyone is jealous of what another person has. Very few are jealous of how they got it. That hidden cost matters. Without it, comparison becomes fantasy. Then fantasy starts writing, checks your future has to cash. I want you to understand something that can save you a tremendous amount of money. Other people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. This is wonderfully liberating once you accept it. The watch you bought to impress strangers, the car you financed to feel established, the clothes you bought because you wanted to project a certain image, the kitchen, the vacation, the school district, the neighborhood. Most people are not looking at you and admiring your deep worth. They are looking at the object and imagining themselves. That is not the same thing. If someone sees a Ferrari, they usually do not think that driver must be peaceful, wise, kind, and fulfilled. They think, if I had that, I would feel important. That distinction matters because it collapses a lot of pointless spending. When you realize that strangers are busy worrying about their own status, their own insecurities, and their own deficiencies, you stop paying so much to perform for them. That is one of the best returns on self-awareness I know. If no one could see your life, what kind of life would you build? If no one saw your driveway, what would you drive? If no one saw your house, what would you buy? If no one saw your vacation photos, where would you go? If no one saw your clothes, what would you wear? If no one knew your title, what kind of work would still feel worthwhile? That question is powerful because it separates utility from status. Status is expensive. Utility is often cheap. Status depends on spectators. Utility depends on function. Status requires refreshing. Utility can endure. If no one were watching, a great many people would make very different decisions. They would buy smaller houses. They would drive simpler cars. They would stop paying premiums for approval. They would discover that what they really wanted was not applause. It was breathing room. Breathing room is one of the finest luxuries in the world. You can create it with modest means. If your expectations are modest enough, you can destroy it with enormous means. If your expectations are foolish enough, that is why I have always thought the difference between rich and wealthy is one of the most important distinctions in finance. Rich is visible. Wealth is hidden. Rich is what you can buy this month. Wealth is what gives you options next year. Rich is current spending power. Wealth is retained flexibility. Rich is loud. Wealth is quiet. Rich is the ability to display. Wealth is the ability to decline. Rich is often an income statement. Wealth is often a balance sheet. A person can earn a large income and still be financially fragile because every dollar is already committed. A person with lower income and lower expectations can be far wealthier than they appear because they have margin. Margin is what stands between you and panic, and you will need it. At some point, your income will disappoint you. At some point, the market will frighten you. At some point, your health will surprise you. At some point, a family member will need help. At some point, the economy will remind you that it owes you nothing. At some point, you will discover whether your life was built for resilience or built for display. That is why savings matters so much. People often obsess about earning more and investing better, but saving is what buys endurance. Investing multiplies what you keep. But first, you must keep something, and you must keep it consistently, not when it is convenient, not when the mood is perfect, not when everything feels safe. Consistently. That word is doing a lot of work. A person who saves inconsistently and spends emotionally can make a high income and stay fragile for decades. A person who saves consistently, raises the savings rate when income rises, automates sensible behavior, and refuses to let every improvement in earnings become a lifestyle expansion, can build surprising security with far less drama. Let me be clear about something. I do not worship deprivation. I do not believe the good life means denying yourself every pleasure and waiting until old age to enjoy existence. That is another form of confusion. Money should serve life, but many people reverse the relationship. They make life serve money, they earn to spend. They spend to signal, they signal to compare. They compare to feel behind. They feel behind and spend more. Then they tell themselves the answer is a bigger paycheck. That is not strategy. That is a loop. So here is how I think about saving. Every dollar you save is a piece of your future that you have pulled back under your own control. Every dollar of debt is a piece of your future that belongs to someone else. That is the cleanest way to understand it. When you borrow for consumption, you are not just borrowing money. You are renting your own future labor. You are giving tomorrow's effort away to finance today's feeling. Sometimes borrowing is necessary. Life can be cruel. Emergencies are real. Hardship is real. I do not mock people who get cornered. But a shocking amount of borrowing is not emergency borrowing. It is emotional borrowing. It is identity borrowing. It is comparison borrowing. It is a person trying to erase discomfort with a purchase. The purchase helps for an afternoon. The bill lasts for years. That is a bad trade. People make that trade because they misunderstand what saving actually buys. They think saving is delayed pleasure. They think saving means I suffer now so that maybe someday in the distant future I can enjoy myself. That framing makes saving feel like punishment. I do not see it that way. When you save money, you are not postponing all reward. You are purchasing present-day peace. You are purchasing a little more sleep tonight. You are purchasing a cushion between yourself and panic. You are purchasing one fewer desperate decision. You are purchasing one more option. You are purchasing time, and time, if you let it do its work, can become astonishingly valuable. A lot of people dismiss small amounts, $5, $10, $20. They compare the size of the act to the size of their problems and decide it is pointless. That is a mistake in both arithmetic and psychology. Small acts repeated for years do two things. First, they create identity. Second, they create capital. The identity matters more than people think. A person who saves a little regularly becomes the kind of person who can trust themselves. They stop telling themselves, I am just bad with money. They begin accumulating evidence that they are capable of restraint, consistency, and self-protection. That matters. A person who says, what is the point? I might as well spend it, is often not making a math decision. They are making an emotional decision. They are saying, the future version of me does not feel real enough to protect. Protect that future person anyway. No one builds meaningful security through one dramatic gesture. They build it through repeated behavior that looks unimpressive from the outside. A little restraint, a little patience, a little less ego, a little automation, a little less performance, a little more honesty, then time enters the picture. Compounding is one of the most extraordinary forces in the world, and most people ruin it by interrupting it. They think the secret is finding the highest return. Sometimes they think the secret is brilliance. More often the real secret is duration. How long can you keep a sound process going? That is the question. A person with average returns and exceptional patience can end up in magnificent shape. A person chasing exceptional returns without patience usually sabotages themselves. People want excitement because excitement feels intelligent. Boring systems often feel beneath them, but boring systems are exactly what many people need. Simple investing, broad diversification, low friction, regular contributions, minimal drama. A plan you can live with when life is messy. That is not a weak answer. It is often the best answer. The world does not reward patience immediately. In fact, patience often looks foolish before it looks wise. That is why so few people practice it. But over long stretches, patience can beat brilliance because patience stays in the game. That is the real trick. Stay in the game. Do not interrupt compounding every time fear or envy knocks on your door. Do not keep changing direction because someone else looks faster. Do not demand that money entertain you while it is supposed to be protecting you. The same truth applies to portfolio construction. People love the idea of optimization. They want the mathematically perfect answer. Maximum return, maximum efficiency, maximum exposure, the best backtest, the sharpest solution. That sounds intelligent. It is not always wise. You do not need the perfect portfolio on paper. You need the portfolio you can actually live with. If your investments cause you to lose sleep, make emotional decisions, panic in downturns, or constantly question yourself, then the spreadsheet is happier than you are. I have no interest in making a spreadsheet happy while a human being is miserable. Money should help you sleep. It should not keep you awake. That is why I think one of the most important questions in finance is this. What are you trying to maximize? Maximum return, maximum status, maximum speed, maximum bragging rights, or maximum durability, maximum calm, maximum optionality, maximum ability to survive the unknown without humiliating yourself. Those are different objectives, and they produce different lives. A lot of people adopt financial plans without ever deciding which life they are trying to fund. That is how they end up successful on paper and miserable in practice. Peace of mind has a return too. It may not appear neatly on a brokerage statement, but it shows up in your marriage, in your health, in your patience with your children, in your quality of decision making, in your resilience under stress, and in your ability to stay with a good plan for decades. That return is real. Do not let anybody laugh you out of respecting it. Another trap is using money as therapy for emotional dissatisfaction. Many people do not know why they spend the way they spend. They buy because they are bored. They buy because they are stressed. They buy because they feel behind. They buy because they imagine the thing will close a hole inside them. Most of the time it does not. A new sweater cannot fix identity. A larger home cannot cure insecurity. A luxury car cannot heal envy. A more expensive vacation cannot create contentment. A bigger title cannot make you love your own life. If you do not examine the emotional problem, the spending never ends because the purchase was never addressing the real issue. So ask yourself better questions. What hole am I trying to fill? What happened last time I solved stress by? Did it work? For how long? What price did the future version of me pay for that relief? What am I trying to become in this moment? Who am I trying to impress? Why do I need this right now? Is this purchase going to improve my life? Or is it going to improve my image? Those are not small questions. They are profit questions. If you answer them honestly, you can save yourself years of drift. There is also a truth people do not like hearing. Getting better with money often requires sacrifice. There is no graceful way around that word. You may need to downshift. You may need to rent longer. You may need to drive the older car. You may need to say no when your social circle says yes. You may need to look ordinary while you are quietly building strength. You may need to disappoint the version of yourself that wanted to appear more finished by now. That can sting, but sacrifice in service of independence is not humiliation. It is investment. Human beings are capable of astonishing endurance when the goal feels noble enough. People will study for years, train for marathons, start businesses in garages, wake up before dawn, suffer rejection, and absorb uncertainty. If they believe the outcome matters, the same is true with money. The problem is not that people cannot sacrifice. The problem is that many of them have defined the goal badly. If the goal is to look rich, sacrifice feels annoying. If the goal is independence, sacrifice feels meaningful. That changes everything. Independence is a better North Star than status. Independence means fewer people can bully you. Independence means fewer emergencies can humiliate you. Independence means fewer jobs can own you. Independence means you can choose the right answer instead of the immediate answer. Independence means your self-respect is less vulnerable to market prices and the opinions of strangers. That is an extraordinary thing to buy, and you can buy it gradually. You do not need a magical number to begin feeling it. Financial independence is not a switch. It is a spectrum. Every saved dollar moves you along it. Every unnecessary fixed cost weakens it. Every act of patience strengthens it. Every avoided emotional purchase protects it. Once you understand that, you stop mocking small progress. You stop saying, "Why bother?" You start saying, "Good. Now I own a little more of tomorrow than I did yesterday." That kind of thinking builds real wealth. Not just the visible kind. Better wealth. Wealth made of resilience. Wealth made of choices. Wealth made of time. Wealth made of self-command. There is another benefit to this approach. The harder you are to impress, the safer you become. And easy. To impress person is easy to bankrupt. All a marketer has to do is flatter their insecurity. All a lender has to do is lower the monthly payment. All an algorithm has to do is show them someone they envy. All a neighbor has to do is upgrade first. Then the spending begins. The harder you are to impress, the more capital you keep, the less your emotions can be monetized by other people. That is an underrated kind of intelligence. This is also where gratitude enters the picture. Some people roll their eyes at gratitude because it sounds soft. They think it is sentimental. It is not. Gratitude is defensive armor. Gratitude shrinks the gap between expectations and reality. When that gap narrows, misery often shrinks with it. A person who can notice what is already working in life is much less likely to chase expensive nonsense just to feel whole. That does not mean pretending your problems are imaginary. It means refusing to turn desire into permanent dissatisfaction. Contentment is deeply underrated. People confuse it with passivity. They think contentment means giving up. They think it means lack of ambition. It does not. It means being able to appreciate what is here without turning every moment into a negotiation for more. A person without contentment cannot enjoy anything for long. Not the raise, not the house, not the vacation, not the achievement, because the mind immediately says, yes. But what next? That is how abundance turns into dissatisfaction. You can be ambitious and still know what enough means. I like ambition. I admire drive. I admire people who want to build, improve, compete, and produce. There is nothing noble about pretending not to care when you do care. But ambition without boundaries becomes hunger without end. And hunger without end is expensive. The person who never knows what enough looks like can never feel wealthy, no matter how much they accumulate. There is always a larger house. There is always someone richer. There is always another social circle where you feel ordinary again. If your peace depends on outrunning comparison, you will die tired. The person who can say, this is sufficient, this serves my life, this gives me what I actually need, has a real chance at contentment. That is not a minor advantage. That is a financial superpower. Let me speak directly to the person who feels ashamed, the person who thinks, I am behind, the person who thinks, I should have figured this out years ago, the person who thinks, I let someone else control the money, the person who thinks, I made foolish decisions, the person who thinks, I spent too much trying to look like someone I was not. Begin with honesty, not self-hatred. Honesty, shame makes people hide. Honesty makes people act. You do not need to become a different species. You need to begin making different decisions. That starts with awareness. Know what comes in, know what goes out, know what you owe, know what you own, know what your fixed costs demand from your future, know which spending is serving life and which spending is serving insecurity, know what your expectations are doing to your peace. That awareness may be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is often the first honest signal that a person is ready to stop drifting. After awareness comes structure. Pay yourself first. Treat saving like a real expense, not a leftover category, not an optional category. A real expense. Part of the cost of existing in an uncertain world. Because life is fragile. Careers are fragile. Health is fragile. Economies are fragile. Relationships are fragile. If you wait for certainty before you build margin, you will wait forever. The person who says, I will save when life calms down, does not yet understand life. Life does not calm down on command. So you build peace in the middle of uncertainty, not after uncertainty has disappeared. And then you keep going long enough for patience to become visible. That is the part many people never reach because it is so ordinary. They get bored, they get distracted, they get envious. They decide they deserve a reward every time progress starts to accumulate. Then they interrupt the process that was beginning to work. Do not do that. The world is full of people who would be transformed by boring systems. Automatic saving, simple investing, reasonable fixed costs, lower ego, less comparison, more patience, more truth. Those things are not cinematic, but they are life-changing. A lot of financial success is simply removing the need for frequent heroic decisions. If every month you have to persuade yourself to behave well, emotion will eventually win. If good behavior is built into the system, you do not need to be a hero. You just need to stay out of the way. That is underrated wisdom, and do not confuse net worth with self worth. That confusion ruins people. A person with lower income who is a good parent, a steady spouse, a decent friend, a calm steward, and a reliable presence for the people they love may be living a far richer life than someone with spectacular income, permanent anxiety, fractured relationships, and no peace. We live in a culture that often celebrates the second person more loudly. That is not wisdom, that is noise. Money can solve many practical problems. It can reduce friction, it can create comfort, it can protect your family from needless hardship, it can purchase time, it can increase your options, it can allow generosity, it can make a good life easier to maintain. But it cannot replace character. It cannot create contentment in a person who has no boundaries. It cannot make endless appetite feel like enough. It cannot turn comparison into gratitude. It cannot make a life meaningful if the person living it never decides what matters. That is why I return to the same principle over and over. Do not use money as a mirror. Use it as a tool. Do not use it to ask, how do I compare? Use it to ask, how free am I becoming? Do not use it to look larger in the eyes of strangers. Use it to make your life more durable. Do not use it to chase a moving target. Use it to build a stable base. Do not use it to prove your worth. Use it to protect your time, your sleep, your family, your options, and your independence. Because in the end, the most valuable thing money can buy is not applause. It is not status. It is not a more impressive life on the outside. The most valuable thing money can buy is the ability to live more of your life on your own terms. If you understand that deeply enough, then from wherever you stand right now, you can begin building real wealth, not the loud kind. The useful kind. The kind that makes you harder to scare. The kind that makes you harder to control. The kind that lets you breathe. The kind that lets you say no. The kind that gives you back time, and in the final analysis, time under your own control is one of the greatest returns money can ever produce.